Am I introducing you?
Yeah, you're just
I'm
gonna
already
start.
screwing this up. Hello and welcome everybody to the Phoebe show. I don't know, what are we calling this?
The space in
The
between.
space in between. My name is Gregg Gonzales, and I am so thrilled to be with Phoebe Leone. And I have been tasked with asking her a few questions about her. And I'm just going to go ahead and start with questions that I have used when I meet people for the first time who are curious about me and my work. I always like to turn it around on them. So we're going to kind of flip the tables around on you.
Yes.
So I call these my 4H questions. Have I shared these with you before?
I don't know.
Okay. So, who inspires you the most right now and why? And it could be like a spiritual leader, it could be a relative, it could be someone living, not living. Think of someone who right now, who you would say you admire and are inspired by.
Hmm. Right now, that's so interesting. I mean, I am at my grandmother's and she often inspires me, so she's one. And then I have a couple people in my life that I just I don't know if it's necessarily like they're my teacher or anything. I mean, everybody's my teacher. That's kind of how I approach it. But I definitely have people in my life that are constantly inspiring me. You're somebody who just came into my world that inspires me, that I admire for sure. I have my friend Danielle, who's just like you, met on social media. And all of a sudden is like, oh my gosh, kindred spirits. And she and I, have the same birth date and we finally got to meet in person and I get to give her a hug. And like I really admire her and I'm in her study group now every morning at 6 a.m. So like I think I used to be the studying teachers from afar, but now I've really zoomed in on the people who are in my life and being inspired by them more so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I can I explore a little bit more with your grandmother?
Oh yeah.
So what is it about her that you admire?
I admire her. She is resilient. I came into this world and she was single. So she was divorced at a young age, well, not a young age. I think she was 40s. But in terms of that wasn't really a thing that happened back then. And but I only knew her my whole life as single until she was 78. So I saw her always as this strong, independent woman. She was moving, she lived in Santa Fe, she lived in Houston, she moved back to the East Coast to be close to her family. And so she really just did what was calling to her in that moment. And I really love that. And that's why I think I have the nomadic life that I do because that's inspired me. And also just being single myself for the last 13 years and being strong and being independent, but also being that when I was as young, I had parents, but I was very, very, very independent and I had to be. And she was this strong person who was like, make sure you use your brains and not just your looks and don't depend on a man. And she had those kind of embedded in me at a young age. But then I also got to see her soften and fall in love at 78 and find her soulmate and I think they had 4 beautiful years together and before he passed. And so I got to see her fall in love and open up and surrender to that because I just thought that maybe she had given up on that. So that was beautiful to witness. And then I watched her in the grieving and I was actually a big help in that too, of helping her grieve those years and being near her and coming to be here during the pandemic. Um, so we have a very special relationship. Um, I think I've even said that before that sometimes I feel like I'm her mom and but then it's very clear that she's my grandmother. So we have this like very past lives kind of destined life and I'll even say something too and I think it was during the pandemic. I don't remember what birthday it was, but I gifted her an astrology reading by one of her friends And the woman actually met with me after and read my chart. And she said, Phoebe, I'm looking at both of your charts, and the way that her chart is, when you came in at that moment, you were here as one of her guides, as one of her angels. Like you were destined to be in her life for that time and space. So we have a very deep connection. And yeah, and she just inspires me. And sometimes there are things that I don't wish.
People that inspire you can also drive you crazy too,
They
you
also
know.
drive me crazy, but also I see it for myself, and that's why she's one of my teachers, because I'm like, oh, now I understand why I feel that maybe other people feel that too
Yeah.
from me. Yeah.
So there were four things that you mentioned when you were describing your grandmother that I want to highlight because as I've gotten to know you, these four things have stood out as reflections of her onto you and why I feel like I love this question because it tells me, obviously, it tells me so much about her, but it also tells me a heck of a lot about you. Because
Mm,
I feel like the people that we admire and are inspired by are people who have qualities and traits that we currently have within ourselves or qualities that we want to enhance within ourselves. So the first one is obviously resilience.
mhm.
And that is you. You know, I think with everything you've gone through in your life and just this feeling of every day is an opportunity to stand up and to start fresh and to take care of myself and to show up for my community. You know, so this resilient kind of, I guess you could say, like, nothing is going to get in my way. It doesn't mean it's not hard, doesn't mean that it's not easy, but still just that feeling of, I'm going to get through this no matter what. I would say her nomadic way of being, obviously, it influenced your work and just this idea of expansive. Don't be tied to just one place that you can, you know, travel and expand and influence and truly be this nomad. So I think that that plays a role. But just in her softness of opening herself up to love and allowing somebody into her space, but then obviously the grieving of losing that person. You know, I think that you have shown just in our friendship, just that the duality of in opening yourself up to love and connection, but then also the loss of that. So I just think that you just in just a very short time just showed so many reflections of yourself to her. But I want to go into one area because you just brought this up recently to me are the things that drive her you crazy that you are now seeing like, oh my God, I'm like my grandmother. So what are the things that drive you crazy about her that now you're starting to see? I think I may have that same embodiment.
Gosh, I hope she's not listening to this one.
You know what? You never know.
Does. She does. Listen. Well, and it's funny because she was a guest on here, and I'm not avoiding the question. I'm going to come back to it.
Yeah.
I was a guest on, she was a guest on here years ago, and it's one of the examples is like she has a certain agenda, and like I just wanted to go and flow. She had very specific ways that she wanted to answer things.
She wanted structure too.
Yeah,
And you're
very.
just like, let's just play. Let's just
And
let
then
it.
there's like, no, don't ask me that question. Like I think Stephen has that. Like we kept it raw. Like it was like, nope, don't ask that question. I'm
Right.
going to, nope, that's not significant to the story. Um, so I don't think necessarily that's me, but I do know that I can be like a little bit of I'm a recovering control freak. I think for me, and I can't speak for her, but I think for me it was just the safety. Like for me, I needed to have some level of control in how to navigate things and relationships in the past that so that I would feel safe and almost had like a hypervigilance in a sense, like knowing where everything is and having to put it back. And but also to go back to when I was like one, she has this story of how I came into her house and I just like took everything off her spice rack and reorganized it in a way. So I don't know like which came first in terms of like just needing some order amongst the chaos. Or was it truly like I just enjoy organization? But she definitely is an organizer and likes that. And I like organization too. But I also like to be like wild and free. Um, and yeah, and I think in terms of just what I was expressing just recently is that she can be very critical of herself and very hard on herself. And I've been like pulling that out of her. She's come on multiple retreats with me where I'm like teaching to the entire group, but I'm really teaching the Dharma to her.
Hmm.
I see how beautiful she is, and I want to pull that out of her to see, for her to see too. I think that I don't think I have that inside of me because I'm very confident. I also had a father that was, and my mother too, was just, I could do no wrong. And so I did come with a great sense of confidence. But I think the critical, like just being critical as a dancer, like you have to, you're looking in the mirror every day, you're like making sure your extension's here and, making sure everything looks right. And so I think there's a little bit of that still just of wanting to make sure everything's looks right.
Yeah.
And definitely has that voice too sometimes that I'm like, quiet that down.
Well, and I think that just so people know, like you are in her space now, and you've been there for a time to take care of her through a recent injury. You are someone who she can depend on to be there for her in times of need, and I know you enjoy that time there, and just the openness
Oh
of the
yeah.
space. But at the same time, I just know the relationship between the two of you is special, but it also has that dynamic of tension and frustration, but also one of just care and love and support. So it's the totality of it as a whole. But
Yeah. Oh yeah, when I mean I was in Bali and I was like, should I stay in Bali during the pandemic? And I got a very clear answer in a breathwork ceremony, no, go home to your mother line, like your mother and your grandmother. And so I did. And when her husband passed, I was the first in the car to drive here. When she was in the hospital last year, I was the one who stayed in the hospital. Like, no, yeah, I'm all in with her.
yeah, that's so
Yeah.
special. My next question, can you
Mhm.
tell me about where you grew up and just a little bit about like what stands out to you as far as like certain memories of childhood? These can be accomplishments, it could be a best friend who was special to you, it could be a teacher, but just give me some like moments of, I guess you could say, magic throughout your childhood. And it could just be like starting with where you grew up. Was that a place that has good memories to you?
Mm. Well, I was born in Pennsylvania, but I really grew up outside of DC in Rockville. We moved around a lot, so that's why an interesting question. I don't often ask people where they're from because, like, it's so complicated for me, so I don't want to impose that on other people. But yeah, I mostly grew up outside of DC with my dad. My parents got separated and then divorced when I was 8. So a lot of my memories were with him. I had my mom on the week every other weekend. But yeah, we had a very special bond, but it was also very complicated too. Him being a Vietnam veteran and had done 2 tours of Vietnam and was a helicopter pilot and got shot down multiple times. So he had very severe PTSD, and that was a huge part of our relationship, which I didn't know. We didn't have language for PTSD back then. We just thought that, he was a drug addict and had rage. So that was a language we had. But I always knew that he was this very special human, and it wasn't just because he was my dad. Um, so it wasn't a mistake that my mom left me with him. I think he was very much like we kept each other safe in some ways. And then my best friend Gabs, who lived down the street, she was my best friend from first grade on. And we just like would run back and forth to each other's homes, and I'd bribe her because she was always grounded and in trouble. But I always just was like, she'd say, I'm grounded, and then I would say, but I have Pringles. She would sneak out of the house for Pringles.
You're a bad influence on her.
Totally about it.
Jailbreak.
Yeah, yeah.
You had mentioned in your previous answer talking about your grandmother and just confidence more specifically, that you gained a lot of it from your parents. that they reminded you quite often of just who you were and how special you were. And so you mentioned both your mom and dad. Can you give me some examples of how your dad instilled that in you when
Oh
you were
my,
young?
yes. So we had, when he was good, when he was going through his good times and he would make dinner and things like that, we had a dining room that opened up to the living room. Like just there was like a little arch, and then the rest of the living room was off to the side. So that would be my backstage. So we would have dinner, and if I was good and I ate all my dinner, then I could do a dance performance. And so I would get backstage and get ready, and I would dance for my dad. And he would sit there and he would piss me off because he would talk. He was the worst audience member. And I was always like, Dad, you can't talk to this dancer on stage. You have to be quiet.
This is not an interactive performance.
It wasn't interactive, but the most beautiful thing is he's saying, Phoebe, you are the most beautiful dancer. You are the most beautiful
Ooh.
daughter. Like whatever you want to do in this world, you can do it. And if anybody ever says anything different, go tell them to go eat shit and die. Like he would literally say that to me, and it was just instilled. And and then it kind of turned into him crying, and I would stop dancing and I would go over and I would hold him because he was very sad and depressed because of the split of my parents and everything that he was dealing with. But it was beautiful, and it was almost comical like at that point. And if people ate dinner with us, like my friends came over for dinner, they knew that they were going to have to do a show with me and perform with for my dad.
Why do I feel like you're kind of reenacting that here, saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to do a podcast, but you're going to be asking me questions." Like, wait a minute, did I sign up for this? Always performing.
I asked you.
You did. You asked nicely, and I graciously said yes. Um, those are some amazing memories. I think that just having that time with him to give you those reminders that I think, when we're young, we oftentimes don't really pay attention to. We remember sometimes the bad conversations, we remember the arguments and just, all the things. But I love that through everything that he had been going through throughout his life and throughout your childhood, that his reminders were always so real. And the fact that he would get emotional about it, because I think it was so, he realized like this is an opportunity to show up for her and to be a dad in the way that, the best way he could. But then obviously tinged with sadness of just, is this what I really envisioned this to be like, but just to have that, I love that. It's rare to find people who say, I learned confidence from my parents. That's really wonderful. My third question is a little bit harder.
Okay.
Can you tell me about a time in your life where either your faith, beliefs, physical stamina were severely tested, but because you went through that, it made you the person you are today?
Um,
And it could be anything. It
I
could
mean,
be.
there's so many moments. Do we want to stay in childhood or we want to move
we,
forward into adulthood?
I'm just letting you
We-
go wherever you want to go. What
Um,
rises to the surface first?
the three that really stand out for me is one, when I did leave my father. Um, I was 15. I was almost 15. I was 14. And it just was bad. It was really bad. And I didn't necessarily want to go live with my mother. And that's when I actually went to go live with my grandmother for a period of time. And that was more, what were the three words? You said something physical, emotional.
Spiritual.
Well, yeah, that was, I don't know what category to put it in, but that was me really taking a choice for myself, and leaving the codependence that there was. And that was really scary because here I am going out into the unknown and feeling like I did something wrong for leaving him, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if he would be homeless or have a drug overdose or die or get in jail. And honestly, all four of those things actually did happen later in life. But but I had to do that. I had to just trust the unknown and go to it and say, this is my path now. I can't continue to go down the path and just take care of him. And then the next part was in 2013, he did come back into my life for 4 years, and that was really powerful. And we had a lot of healing there. But then he died just in his sleep. And then 2 months later, my husband asked me for a divorce. So that was like gut-wrenching. Um, and I think that was more of like the emotional piece. I guess that first one was more spiritual of like, what am I here for and what am I doing? And this one was like, oh my God, these people that I invested and poured my heart and soul into are just no longer in my life. So I had to, yeah, figure out what life looks like just with Phoebe, in a sense. And then physically was in all of them, I guess, but mostly physically was my cancer journey the last 2 years that just, had physically could not handle the chemo anymore and throwing up and feeling like I'm okay if and then just like the nausea and there's like an energy you can't put words to with chemo where you just want to die. Like I prayed in bed a couple of nights, like I will be okay if I die. Like I'm absolutely okay with it. I'm good. And I woke up and I was like, okay, I guess we're doing this.
Hmm.
So it made me say, okay, I'm here for a reason. So let's figure this out and let's show up. Like let's give 100% because yeah, it's either this or that, nothing in between.
So, in looking at your three examples, and I love how you gave three separate examples of spiritual, energetic, and physical suffering. Let's start with the spiritual one with leaving your dad at 15. How did that help you grow? How did that strengthen your spirit as time went on? That experience of leaving him, what did you learn from that, and how did that nurture your spirit to where it is today?
It's interesting because I don't think it really settled in until later in life, actually until he passed away, because I had so many years of feeling shame and guilt
For
because
leaving him?
yeah, for leaving. And I replayed it out in relationships with men, like with my partner who was also a drug addict and had some mental health issues. So I think I repeated the pattern for a little while, and so I didn't really get to come into that full experience of that transformation until after he passed away and that person was no longer in my life. Yeah, so that was, yeah. I picture myself, there's a picture for Nomad. It was our first picture of me in Costa Rica. It was right after all that happened. It was a year to the date of his passing. And I have a yoga mat on my back and I'm looking out at a path and somebody took it over the shoulder of me and it's like me going on the adventure. And it was like the fool, right? And or the hero's journey, right? Like being called to the adventure.
Hmm.
And that was the first time that I thought, okay, this is truly my journey now, and I get to make it what I wanted to make it. And there was no more shame or guilt. I was able to release that fully. And so the last 13 years have really been his voice just guiding me through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for the emotional chapter of his death and then the divorce that happened soon after, how did you grow emotionally from that?
Oh my God, just like it's been probably the last 13 years and like writing my book was just looking at all of the patterns and under a microscope and just looking at the energy in my body, that all the stories that my body was telling me throughout the years. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. I've been carrying this journey here and it's been over here in my hip and now it's over here in my breast, right? And just looking at how I manifested it still in different patterns, physically in the body and then also in relationships and just making new choices. And yeah, the somatic work that I've done on myself and then just, studying it and helping with my clients has been huge, and I think it became from all of that,
For
unpacking it.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure. And then the last one with the cancer. How are you stronger physically now because of what you've gone through physically in that experience and journey. And that stronger could be just the awareness of your body and just being tapped into it, listening to it more. I mean, just think of just ways that the cancer opened you up to just becoming more in tune with yourself physically and
Yeah.
stronger today than when you were first diagnosed.
Well, I can't, like, physically, it's still hard because I'm still recovering from a surgery.
Sure.
But I mean, I have got my chemo curls, so physically, I've gotten my like dream hair.
End of story. That's it. That's
But no, but I mean, there was also another layer to that too. I mean, one of the reasons why I did all of the things, I really wanted to take the most like holistic path forward, which didn't include chemicals in my body. I did that because I wanted to make sure people in my life felt safe. And when I realized I'm actually the only one who's actually suffering and dealing and doing the chemo every day, and I have a whole different belief system. I was able to release the chemo and release that old story of making choices for other people. And again, get that it's just like this constant theme that comes back up is like you get to make your own choices, Phoebe, right? Like this is your body, this is your life. You get to make the choices and you don't have to feel like you're taking, making them for other people all the time, and sacrificing yourself. Like I love co-creating with people, but it's when the lesson that I'm learning is that you can't sacrifice yourself in co-creation or when you're working with other people or depending on other people. Like there's compromise and there's negotiation, but when you're in that space of sacrificing in a way that is depleting and it doesn't fill you back up, that's when I have to say, okay, I have to leave, and be okay with that and not have the shame or the guilt that I used to.
mm, so good. So good. I have a final question.
Oh, final question. Okay.
Well, not final, but the last part of my 4-H question. And we'll
Okay.
get to what the 4-H's are. Um, what are you looking forward to this year? And we could maybe just look at the half a year, or we can look a year out. But like, what is exciting you when you think about what's coming?
So much. I'm so grateful that I have so much to look forward to. I mean, one, that I'm in remission and I am getting better every day physically in my body. So I see that evidence every day. I wake up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like, I'm 90. Now I'm about like probably like mid 50s.
Hey,
So
wait
yeah,
a minute. That's not a bad place to be.
sorry. Well, I was saying earlier I was like 70s and 60s, so I think I've like gotten closer to my age.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I'm turning 50 next year, and I'm like actually excited about that because I could leave the 40s behind. That's fine. And there's something that I've been just feeling and going through of like, oh, I get to step in as the wise one now. And it's funny because when I was in high school, um, I always like wanted to be like the old person who got to like stay at home. Not because I was lazy, just because like I didn't want to have to like perform and go out and do the thing. Like it was like, could I just be like retired? Could I just like be an old retired person?
Who never leaves their house.
Oh, I don't, I mean, I'm saying it in a really weird way, but I've always been the wise one. Like
Yeah.
even when I was young, I was the wise one and I didn't have to like do the things that like, most teenagers feel like they have to do to be cool or to fit in. I just didn't want to do that. I just wanted to stay at home and dance or go out and dance or like I didn't care about drinking or anything like that. So, um, yeah, so there's something nice about, oh, I get to cross the threshold into becoming more of the wise one. So there's beauty in that. And Nomad, I just feel like this vision I've had of Nomad for 13 years, it's finally coming into place. Like I think all of the work that I did on a personal level had to happen, and I had to become the leader that I am now. I had to go through all of the trials and tribulations in order to be who I am, for Nomad to be ready for me and me to be ready for Nomad and what it's about to become and what it is becoming now. Um, Yeah, so I just know that there's a lot happening there that I don't even know yet and see yet. But just this past month, I feel like Nomad's completely different.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So the four H's
Mhm.
are kind of my answer to that standard, like what are some good questions, like icebreakers when you meet someone? And it doesn't have to be all four. So I kind of threw all four of them at you. But these are just great places to kind of jump from with people. So the four H's are hero, so your grandmother,
Mhm.
history, talking about your childhood, heartbreak, which we're
Mhm.
going through the physical, spiritual, and emotional sufferings, and then hope and talking
Mhm.
about the future. So each one of your answers just told a beautiful story. It was almost kind of like you just painted a picture through your answers. I've seen your grandmother, but I could almost just imagine her, you know, in the story that you were telling about her, imagining what she's like and how she dresses, like almost to the point of like the specific details of things. I've never seen, well, I've seen a picture of your dad, but like seeing him watching you dance, it's almost like the images come alive through your telling of the story and then seeing you performing. And so what I love and why I love this work of just sitting with people and asking them questions about them is the stories. It's you just opening up and just not knowing where it's going to go, but just getting a little peek inside that not everybody always gets a chance to see. But most importantly, it's seeing you shine. It's seeing you transform and get excited talking about people who are meaningful to you, and knowing, especially in the ones that are heartbreaking and the loss. Just sometimes even those emotional tugs are so powerful to capture with people. And you are not short on sharing emotion, so you make the storytelling experience that much better. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of bring that out in you and just turn you into just this amazing storyteller that you are. And I think you do that in your work in your own way of kind of guiding people this story through the story of Nomad and what they're looking to create. That's a story. But this just gives like a little snapshot into Phoebe, more of the personal side of you. I'd like to ask you something that has been on my mind lately for myself, but because of someone who I respect and inspires me. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this concept of spiritual maturity.
Mhm.
What does that look like to you when I say that? Would you consider yourself to be spiritually mature? And what does that look like to you in terms of your daily practices, in terms of how you manage, maintain, and strengthen your spiritual center?
Hmm. Spiritual maturity. Um, I think it's definitely going beyond the practices. And it's not like when me being a yoga teacher, I would always say it's not what you're doing on the mat, it's off taking it off the mat. So we can have a beautiful spiritual practice in the morning or at night or throughout the day, but it's how you're being in between, right? And that's what I think is spiritual maturity is how are you actually applying it? And you said that in your last, when we were having the conversation in our last interview is it's the application of it. And it's not just, well, these are the pillars of what it means to be spiritual and I'm doing them, but it's actually like through all the cells of your body, right? And I think it's also accountability. I think that, coming from the lineage of yoga, and there were so many gurus that, had the well, in all realms of spirituality, but there have been so many of the gurus, right, having their crumbling moment, and um, it's being able to hold yourself accountable and holding responsibility, being responsible for because I never expect anybody to be perfect, And I think when I was little, there was the word perfect came into my realm, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want to be. I want to be perfect. But then when I realized, no, I want to be in the highest, I don't remember the next word that I learned, but I was like, no, I just want to be the best version of myself, right? And the best version of yourself isn't perfect.
Hmm.
Best version of yourself is knowing, okay, I have some blind spots here, but I want to learn and I want to grow. And so I think that's what spiritual maturity really is not being perfect and like, I'm on the mountain in the Himalayas and meditating. That's me being spiritually mature. It's like, no, how do I actually act in the world and deal with the hard stuff and show up even when it's hard,
Yeah.
or grant myself the grace not to show up when I need to.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. All of what you shared was just so beautifully said and spot on because where this is coming from is one of my favorite books, and I don't know if I've shared this with you before, is Bringing Home the Dharma from Jack Kornfield. And the whole book is really written as a meditation on how to basically find peace within yourself, no matter where you are and whatever the circumstance. And so I've found he actually has a whole section on spiritual maturity that I just really resonate with. And so much of this idea of people that I meet who say, I do the yoga, I meditate, I journal, I, go to church, or I, these things, but I'm still not happy. I'm still just not, I'm still suffering, whatever that suffering is, right?
Or they're
And
still people.
what's that?
Or they're just still shitty people
Yeah,
too.
and sometimes, yeah. I mean, I actually was talking to someone who's like, I go to church and, you're in these places where everybody feels aligned and we're praying, we stand, we kneel, we sit, and then you pull out of the parking lot and they're flipping you off because you almost cut them off, right? So it's so much of this idea of that it's what you do off the mat and the practices you do throughout your day when no one's looking, even when you're not looking. Like, how are you holding yourself accountable? And you mentioned that too. And what brought this up to mind for me, because we've been spending a lot of time with Nomad and talking about the retreat and bringing people on these adventures and these quests and these experiences that are transformative. But I'm like, any more sitting with, and I've talked to you about having these moments to just get away, whether it be like a sabbatical for myself or go on a retreat, like a silent retreat or things like that. What the book talks about is you don't need to go to the Himalayas to be on retreat.
Mhm.
You don't need to join an ashram, or you don't need to, shave your head. You don't need to go to, well, I did. You can literally be in retreat right now. You can bring a sense of peace and serenity and calm and openness as you would on the beaches of Bali or you know, in India or in places. I mean, granted, you don't have the environment. You can bring yourself there energetically and get tapped into yourself to just what is going on with me, just as if you're on the mat, like listening to your body, paying attention to just the sensations and just, allowing yourself to just be open and honest with yourself. But have that be something that's a practice when you start to feel yourself slide into despair, into sadness, into low energy vibrations, that it's the maturity to bring yourself back, or at least to recognize it and know that I have the tools to bring me back to some level of groundedness. And sometimes it's having the maturity to sit in it, to just embrace the sadness, embrace the grief, embrace the anger, and learn from it and grow from it, but don't be defined by it, you know? I don't know. I just feel like because of your work and helping people build these retreats, I just feel like this idea of letting the retreat be an extension of who you are beyond just the retreat itself,
Yeah.
and how that experience for people who do get away, how can that stay with them after they've gone home? In the book, he talks about, I think it's like a Zen saying, after the ecstasy, the laundry.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the whole book. Yeah.
it's like you got to go back to living your life, right? You every day, just, the worries, the bills, the conflict, the news, everything kind of is there. It's
Yeah.
how are you adapting to that and using what you've learned on your mat, in your meditation, in those moments that you've mapped out for yourself to let that then impact the everyday.
Yeah.
And to me, all of what you're talking about in terms of just showing up as your best self and just being fully aware of just what is that best self, you know? And that's why, to me, we talked about this on the last podcast of just, for me, strengthening just my awareness, just to be alert and to be awake to myself, and then allow that to then be extended into what I'm noticing outside of me. What do I have in my control? What is not? You know, to me, that's just all. My spiritual maturity has taken years.
Mhm.
When I was doing massage work, I was so not in my mature space I am now. And I feel like meeting people like you has helped me feel like there are others who have reached a level of maturity and constantly growing and evolving that inspires me to continue to grow and evolve. So I just feel like because of the work you do, but also knowing you like I do, I wanted to kind of touch on this idea because it's been a central focus of mine
Mm.
is what is my spiritual maturity today?
Yeah.
And when I say mature, it's not like I'm immature. It's more
Yeah.
mindless versus mindful.
Yeah. And I think that, there's another term, spiritual bypassing, right? Where we use the tools or the like it creates this hierarchy. Well, I do the yoga and I meditate for X amount of hours and I get to be a shitty person, right? So,
It's
um,
like going to confession. I'll just confess
yeah,
it all away.
yeah, that's what spiritual bypassing
Yeah.
is actually. I mean, there's other nuances to it, but I I feel what you're speaking to, especially when you're talking about retreats, is I think that what I see for retreats is that it's taking you on those transformational experiences around the world, but also ultimately within yourself, right?
Hmm.
Giving yourself those spiritual tools or whatever tools are in that toolbox, because not all retreats are necessarily spiritual, but wellness tools or transformational tools, whatever language works for you, so you can come back home, right, with that transformation and integrate that. And we talk a lot about that inside of our containers too, with our guides of making sure that they're implementing resources, whether it's a program that people continue on with or working with them one-on-one, or just having a basic, at least a couple of check-in calls to make sure everybody's integrating well, because so much happens. And this is what I think is dangerous when we talk about retreats or we talk about spiritual awakenings. Then that doesn't have to happen on a retreat. It could be in some sort of ceremony in nearby or on your own mat. But a lot of times when we have those expansive experiences, we don't know what to do with it, and we don't know who we're becoming, and we don't have integration tools. And that's where I feel like it could be dangerous in a sense. Um, and so making sure that you are taken care of and you do have these practices and these resources and the guides and whoever to help integrate you back in.
Hmm.
So we make sure that everybody's being taken care of, and whatever the modality is or whatever the experiences that our facilitators, our guides are doing on their retreats, it's just so important that people have that practice. And that's where the spiritual maturity comes in, of
Hmm.
understanding, oh wow, I just had this experience and I need a guide to help me back, right? And this could be you being on your own yoga mat at home, and you just had this grand opening and you're just like, who the hell am I? I mean,
Hmm.
I feel like every single day right now I'm waking up, I'm like, who am I? Where am I? What's going on? Because so much is happening so fast. And if you don't have the practices to ground you, you could go crazy right now.
For
Like
sure.
in the way the world is moving, you could be constantly triggering old traumas over and over again if you don't have those resources. So I feel like it's really important to, yes, integrate it into your life, but also have the tools and have some sort of ritual. Like you asked me before, what are my rituals? And my rituals And my morning is, meditation, movement, journaling in some ways. Like I shared before, it's not always writing it down. I'm doing both right now for
Hmm.
a program I'm in, but like writing it and also speaking it. It's feeding myself. I mean, that is part of it, is like making sure I have nourishing food because I didn't as a child always have meals. So that's like part of my self-care is making sure I have food. Um, and I'm sure I can't remember if I said everything, but I mean, I literally have hours in the morning where I
Yeah.
am practicing, but it's not, now I go into the world and I'm different. Like I'm taking that into my day. And if I'm in my day and I know I'm having a moment and I'm feeling triggered, I have a practice. Maybe it's going outside and, nature was the other piece, is
Hmm.
being in nature in some way. And like maybe I need to put my feet in the earth, or maybe I need to have a hard conversation with someone because there's miscommunication there. Whatever it is, it's like that's the maturity of going, what do I need in this moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A word just came to me that I almost feel better represents maturity.
Mm.
I think spiritual wisdom.
Yeah, I
And I
like that.
think that that is something because I feel like with wisdom, it can always be enhanced, it can always grow, and you can always maybe replace something that feels maybe old hat, and find something new that maybe can strengthen that wisdom and that maturity. But I
Yeah.
just think that anymore today, there's so much distraction that people are choosing versus doing the work to strengthen that wisdom and maturity. I would just say our phones are a great example of that. It's easier sometimes for people to be distracted by, oh, let me see what's going on my feed and get kind of caught up in the news and just, the device becomes kind of their outlet versus the practice of meditation, of being in nature, of taking a yoga class, of nourishing your body both inside and out. Like, I just feel like there's too many things that I feel like people are gravitating to as kind of their quick fix. Because spiritual maturity takes time. You don't just meditate once and you're like, I'm enlightened, right? Like it's a practice. Like you never master it. That's why it's a practice. And so I just
Mm.
feel like for me, I have to remind myself if I miss a day or if I miss one of my rituals or if I, like today, if I just struggled getting a good night's sleep, which I just cherish a good night's sleep, rather than getting angry and getting caught up in the swirl of, you know, knowing what I could have been better at. And I think most people would just continue to beat themselves up. Just it's a learning opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow. And I literally just found something, an image that's, hang on, I got to find it because it's so appropriate to what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
And it's from Maya Angelou. And it says, open up. Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. To me, just that also in and of itself represents spiritual maturity and wisdom. It's the knowing that we're going to fail. We're going to have days where we're just not going to show up as the best version of ourselves. But it's the maturity of knowing that I have an opportunity to start over. And
Mhm.
what do I do? It's on me to make the choices to be better. And so I just think that that is an area that I feel many people wish they had more maturity in their spiritual life. And when I say spiritual, it has nothing to do with religion, it has nothing to do with, but it's almost like it's faith, but it's faith in yourself. It's faith in the trueness of who you are. And what are you doing to nourish that true nature of who you are? And what feeds that? What makes it expand and grow and give and love and serve? If we don't do that, I just feel like we're kind of skipping through life mindlessly. And then when things knock us off course, it's like it's detrimental. But
Yeah.
for the spiritual, mature person, it's like, oh, that was a thing. Ouch, that hurt. But I've dealt with much worse. I can handle this, So I just feel like that is an area for me that when I get knocked off my horse, like I have the tools. I know what it takes to get back up on it and saddle up and start again.
Yeah. I want to speak to something that you said
Mm,
because was also a layer to that. Um, I'm trying to remember exactly what you said, but basically, like it takes time. You were saying that it's not a pill. I think you said it's not a pill you take, it takes time.
Well,
And
it's a practice, it's
well,
not something you master. Yeah.
right. And I think this is also part of the maturity or the wisdom is because we live in a Western world where we think like even people have a spiritual awakening. Like how many times have I heard, oh, I had this spiritual awakening. My Kundalini's rising, or I had this amazing plant ceremony. I'm not speaking ill to plant ceremonies, but
Sure.
people have these like moments, these
Quick
flashes
fix.
and they're like, oh my God, everything's shifted. And I think that's so dangerous because, again, they need that integration, but it then becomes spiritual junkies. Like my best friend who passed away, she was constantly telling me, oh, I did an ayahuasca ceremony. I didn't. I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to do it like every weekend. Um, and I think that that's something that we have to be aware of too, is that we don't become addicted to the thing. And those are extreme experience. But I even released my yoga practice for a while because I couldn't be happy unless I was on the
Right.
mat. Like I could, yeah, I couldn't be happy unless I was on the mat. And I was like, okay, that's me being addicted or connect. Like I'm reliant on this thing. And so I need to make sure that I know how to be in the world and maybe not have that thing. Maybe
Right.
not have the spiritual junkie. Like my yoga teacher told me one year, when I was asking her something, I was like, where do you feel it in a pose? And she's like, Phoebe, you don't always have to feel it. Maybe you're a sensation junkie. And I was like, oh, interesting. That's for me is if I start to feel so much and I'm like going into the pain all the time, I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, am I being addicted to that? Because I think like that's my gateway into being more spiritually enlightened.
Yeah.
So I even pull back from that sometimes.
See, and I try not to use the word addiction, but it's more attachment. We become attached to the things that we're like, well, if I just do more of this, you know, and if I don't have that, then I'm not going to have that sense of fulfillment. And so that's something that I think as part of my spiritual maturity, it's this feeling of non-attachment to things is really difficult. Like that is a piece of my maturity that I am struggling with on a daily basis because I can love and care and give so much, but from the Buddhist standpoint, I can't be attached to the outcome. I can't be attached to anything as an outcome of that. Just let it be. Just let it like show up as that. Be full of love, but don't expect it to like have a transactional, I guess, exchange. And that's hard, because we want to show up fully. We want to give. We want to love. But we also want to receive that. We want to feel like it's worthy of something, that we're getting something out of it. And so I have to then rely on just my own spiritual maturity of just as long as I stay true to me and I don't get attached to any outcome. And then like if it's a call or if it's like a discovery call, like especially like it's in that session of like, okay, here's someone who's really into the work. It's a practice for me to go into that without any expectation of them saying, yes, here's my credit card, let's go. Knowing what I'm giving them is exactly what they want, it's what they need, it's what they value, but they just may not be in a place to do it. And I've had to detach myself from that, but walk away saying, I showed up fully, I planted seeds using your frame, constantly planting nourishing, worthy, valuable seeds, but that's their garden to tend. I can't be constantly coming by and sprinkling feed and fertilizer and I mean, I can do things, but I can't let that thing blossom and grow without them. And so for me, that is something that I've had to learn is just to tap into that spiritual maturity of non-attachment. And it's painful at times,
Mhm.
but it is something that when you do feel you don't need that quick fix, you don't need that, instant on demand, you know, knowing that I'm moving 1% better in the direction that I know I need to go. And that makes a successful day for me. The eureka moments would be wonderful. But I think it's so much of the reminder. It's the journey, not the destination. So, well, I don't know how we're doing on time, but I have one last question for you if we have time.
Okay, let's go for it.
So it's probably the most simplest question that I could ask you, but it's also one of the most powerful because
Okay.
you did it to me.
Mhm.
Who are you?
I thought you were going to ask me what's the space in between.
Well, okay. You can choose one of the two because I think both of them are very apropos. What is
Uh,
your space in between, or who are you? What feels
it's
more?
kind of the same. I mean, I live in the space in between. I've surrendered to this is a blessing and a curse of being the queen of the space in between, of helping people through transitions, through transformation. But in that my name Phoebe means radiant, radiant one, radiance, or pure. And so I love that one of my teachers, Alexander John Shaya, he was the one who turned the light onto that for me, was radiance is not light. It holds the dark and the light. And and also Phoebus means Phoebus is the god, one of the goddesses of the moon. So I used to say, oh, I bring light to the darkness, being a full moon. So I do feel that is a superpower of mine, is that I do shine light on some of the places that people don't necessarily want to see in themselves, but they're actually really beautiful gems. And sometimes that hurts, and on both sides of being the messenger and also the receiver. Um, but I've just come to surrender and be okay with that. And that I feel is like on the depth of my purpose. My why is to have people, to give a space for a greater sense of belonging. And so sometimes we have to go to those places that feel a little uncomfortable in order to feel the sense of belonging, right? Because we could fit in really easy, but giving yourself a sense of belonging, that means that you are seen and held and loved in all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I do my best to be that space for myself and for the people that are in my world.
I think you answered both questions very well.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. That was beautiful. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me. That was fun.
Oh, I'm so happy. You were good at interviewing me. I had a feeling you knew how to ask questions.
I fight my way through it. It's a struggle, but I tend to just feed off of your energy and just feel a lot of times it's just what feels right in the moment. And I just thought, oh, let's have fun with the four H's. And you knocked them out of the park. So
Thanks. I passed the
you
test.
did. You did. You're an official storyteller.
I am. Thank you, Greg. I
Thank you,
appreciate you.
Phoebe.
This
My
is
pleasure.